This is Phantom Electric Ghost, and we're with Dave Mysliwiec. That's how I say your name.
Mysliwiec.
Mysliwiec.
Yeah, there you go.
Sorry. But
Good, buddy.
you're the founder and CEO of Upstate Sound Music Group, and we've got your link there for the URL. And welcome to the Phantom Electric Ghost podcast. How you doing today?
Pretty good, man. A little wiped out today. That's why I got my little energy drink right here to make sure I'm perked up for this nice little conversation we're about to have. But it was just like I was telling you before, checking out some music publishing stuff, listening to the MLC and, a bunch of other sub-publishers and stuff, talk about the issues with sub-publishing in different territories and all that stuff. And, checking out the data that is on like the distribution thing versus like what's coming in through Amazon Music and the MLC and all that, and why there's issues. And it could be ISRC codes and like all that other stuff. It's very complicated, the publishing side of things. It's kind of archaic in a sense. I feel like we got to update it.
Yeah. It's like a lot of people in publishing, like if you're into hip hop and you're into sample packs and you're doing a lot of heavily sampling, then it gets really complicated with clearing the samples. Like I'm more of an original musician, so everything I write is pretty much what I play.
Yeah.
So I tend to not get a lot of copyright strikes that way. But yeah, it's like I'm in BMI, so that does handle my stuff. But yeah, it's this idea today, like of producers and actual musicians. Like sometimes there's two different groups. Yeah.
Yeah, I call them beat makers. I think there's a difference between a beat maker and a record producer. I'm more of the like before I started the company, I was more a record producer, songwriter, and all that stuff. Of Max Martin, like that style of songwriting and production, especially when Avicii and a lot of the DJs started getting big. Like the producer could be the artist now. Like, so I'm like, oh, there it is. That was our chance. Let's go. So me and my buddy Shane really kind of perfected our craft with all that stuff, and we were all about like not using samples either. Like we had to play the guitar, we had to play the instruments and keys and all that. And then like remember Splice too, right?
Yeah.
Everyone
I don't really use it, but like I kind of use my MPC to actually connect it through CV to modes in Eurorack.
That's what I'm saying. Like a lot of even beat makers will just snag some splice loops and like put two loops together and call themselves a producer. And I'm like, damn, you get publishing for that? That sucks.
Yeah. I get stuck in sound design on my Moog.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm in with a CV type of Moog, analog transistor Moog, playing with the CV, getting the sound as a sound designer before I even write the song.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not grabbing it from Splice or grabbing some pack. I'm actually creating my own tones and my own drum sounds and all that stuff.
You gotta be careful with that though, bro. You get lost in that.
I know. That's kind of what I like, because it's a cathartic to me.
Yeah.
The process is like not always about trying to do it as quickly as possible, but kind of getting to where I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a different mindset because I have a day job.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what the goals are, man. If it's for you, then do your thing, dude. Like go down that rabbit hole. I mean, I'm sure you'll find some wild designs. You can make your own sample packs. If you're designing your own stuff, get another source of income coming in.
Yeah, but then I tend to want to use it. So that's my rub. Is like if I go give it to somebody else and then I can't use it.
Well, I mean, you could always do like the even the packs, like some sample packs, not on Splice because those are royalty free, but some packs, they request like some publishing and stuff on it. But again, it just gets down to like, why do you do it? Like what's your goal with it? If it's just for you, then it doesn't matter about all the other.
No, it's kind of for my audience, for the ghost music I do.
Yeah,
I have my own tones in my library, my own stuff, so I don't get hit. But but that's it's just the idea of being inspired to be in the business. And what made you? I'm going to segue into like, why did you start Upstate Sound? Like, what was the kind of genesis of that?
Kind of a lot of reasons, actually. Every now and again, another one kind of pops up. But like I was saying, my buddy and I were kind of record producing, and I'm in Nashville, Tennessee right now, and we were both. Pop isn't really big here. It is starting to get there now. Like it truly is becoming Music City, I would say, post-COVID, just because it kind of fast-tracked a lot of things. Everyone's leaving LA, everyone's leaving New York.
I've talked to bands from Nashville. It seems like the scene.
yeah, it's changing, which is I've been here like 12 years now, dude. It's completely different. The skyline's different. It's a different city now. It's pretty interesting. But yeah, my buddy and I were supposed to get out to Los Angeles like 2019. You know, he got out there later that year, and then I was going to get over there March 2020. Obviously, the world shut down, so had to pivot a little bit. And my brother ended up moving down here, and the Upstate Sound has always been a thing. You know, it started off as an artist name, actually, like just Upstate, you know, because I'm from upstate New York originally, like north of Albany.
That was like your stage name?
Yeah, it was like to represent the state of New York, not New York City, you know, because everyone thinks the city whenever you hear New York, you know, it's a big state.
They don't think about Albany or they always think New York.
Albany, Buffalo, Rochester, the Catskill Mountains, you know, Lake George and stuff. But yeah, even my the logo, I don't know if you've seen the arrow. I actually drew it on this guitar back in like 2014.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I drew that 2014, and then my brother, I took a picture of it and sent to my brother, and he I guess vectorized it. I don't know how the graphic design stuff works, but then created the logo for us.
That's awesome.
With that for a little while now. And you know, when we started it, it was, you know, we had the baker side. You know, I could make records and beats and songs and stuff like that, but we didn't have the business side locked in just yet. Like, you do need both. And, you know, you can do both for a little while, but like it gets to a point where if you want to scale, you do need to make a decision, whether you want to be that baker or you want to be that, you know, the businessman. So as we kind of were developing this, it started off as just a beat making production company. I brought on a bunch of different beat makers, especially here being in Nashville, where hip hop is kind of a misfit genre. You know, it's country music obviously around here, but you know, we started bringing on friends of mine because I couldn't make enough beats to like fill up the catalog, because BeatStars was getting popular around that time. And you know, we were going to be doing ClickFunnels and stuff, because I don't know if you know what Legion Beats was, but he was having a lot of ads around that time promoting ClickFunnels and stuff with Russell Brunson and all that, you know, like buy one beat and get fucking 20 of them or some shit like that, you know. And then if you buy another $20 thing, you get this sample pack or something. Obviously, when the world shut down, nobody was trying to buy beats, you know, everyone was just making sure they could eat. And who knows what was going to happen. So we actually pivoted again and then started a podcast called MC to MC. And the whole point of that was like, you know, master of ceremonies, like MC to Music City, you know, like kind of talking to the underground artists and all that. So the rappers we had on, Foundation and Adeli did a great job in the early days, and you know, chatting with them and learning about just the scene around here. And it was a cool way for us to learn more about it too, because like I said, I'm from upstate New York originally. I'm not going to.
Is it really getting to be a significant hip hop scene?
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, Electric Feel just moved here. That's Post Malone's company. Well, it's not his company, but his management company has a record label and all these other things. They just opened up a shop here. Position Music just moved here because we're right on 12 South. Have you ever been to Nashville?
No, I haven't been there direct. No.
Yeah, so you've heard of Music Row?
I heard of it. Yeah, I've talked to bands that have been there, but I haven't been there. But I've talked
we're right there. Like, I mean, I could throw a rock at it. We're right on Music Row, essentially, just by 12 South in Belmont. But cool. What was I saying? Yeah, that genre is getting big. I know definitely. Who's the producer from Memphis? T Grizzly or something? Is that his name? There's some really huge Memphis producer. He's got Drake cuts and all that stuff. He just opened up a studio here. There's a lot of people open up studios here. We're kind of known as the hip hop studio. A lot of rappers do come to us. You know, even when we were at the internship there at Belmont, we were getting told like, oh yeah, you know, everyone around here says, you know, go to Upstate for the rap stuff, for studio sessions and stuff like that. Now, like me, I'm more the label publishing side, but you know, like I said, we do clientele with studio services and all that stuff. But anyways, as the company was kind of figuring itself out, we ended up having a guest on the podcast, and one of my partners was like, yo, we should sign this dude. Don't know how to do that, my guy. So, you know, we even though I went to Belmont, it was for audio engineering and stuff. So I never really kind of got a full understanding of how the business side works. Like you do as a record producer, you understand some stuff, but it's not like the ins and outs and like how to negotiate and, you know,
like contract. Well, it's more like an attorney space. It's more
yeah, all that stuff. which I love contracts now. I collect those things, man. I love reading over those things and hearing feedback too. But over when we went back home for Christmas to visit the family, like for 2 weeks straight, it was like 8 a.m. to 2 a.m. just researching. What is a record label? What's a 360 versus a licensing deal? What's a at pub admin versus a co-pub? Why is there 20 different management, types, for companies? Why is Barstool Sports so popular? Are record labels just media companies? Could it be as big as Barstool in terms of branding and stuff like that? Could we have little shows? Could we do all these things? Just went down the rabbit hole. And then when we got back, we hired an entertainment lawyer. What we wanted was a little out of his wheelhouse. So we brought in somebody who we kind of view as a mentor now. And he got us contracts, new LLCs, and we got interns in less than 2 weeks and just hit the ground running with it. So
how does a label work compared to like in the 70s where, bands would get signed and then get in advance and tour support and things like that? Is like, what's the world like today with all these independent artists, who want to kind of produce themselves? You get bands like Pearl Jam, they produce themselves. Wilco, they produce themselves. Even Radiohead, they produce themselves. So like what is going on in the industry, and what type of artists do you still want to be on labels?
All right. So there's a lot to unpack there. Right now, the industry is becoming like every other industry. Companies are investing in pre-existing clientele and revenue. It is extremely difficult to create a brand from scratch nowadays. So all the companies are just like, let's not bother wasting time and money on this. Let's just invest in something that's already making moves. So artists have to kind of approach it that way now. In terms of like labels nowadays, it's really artist services. It's distro, it's sync, it's, the publishing administration, it's, marketing assistants, and it's stuff like that. That's kind of like the trend that's going on. So even the majors have been consolidating and focusing more on their indie-owned distribution companies, the Orchard and like VMG and ADA and stuff like that. They're going to start putting way more focus on those. And even around the world, they're starting to buy, instead of trying to figure out how to break an artist like in India or like Thailand or something, they're just going to buy the biggest company that's there. You guys handle it.
Just like acquire the known property and use that.
Yeah. Because like even at Rolling Loud, 60% of the artists were all indie, And again, it kind of gets down to like, what's your definition of indie nowadays? Like there's such like Empire, like there's such big companies like indies nowadays, like Concord. They're valued at like $4 billion or something. Like at what point
what is really indie as a company that they're making that really indie?
Yeah, like Shabuzi, for example. Amazing success. He earned it like over 10 years, dude. Guy grinds, but he's like with Empire. Of course, they're paying for shit, the marketing and like all this other fucking stuff. To me, in indie is like you're still working a 9 to 5, funding the shit yourself.
Well, yeah, indie is kind of like me back in the day. What I kind of refer to as like IRS records, Sub Pop records, that type of thing. SST, because like a band like I'm kind of getting to old punk like Husker Du, Replacements. Bands like that were on these really independent labels that weren't that big.
Yeah, and they did their thing too. Like they had those agreements, like because back when physical was a thing, it's not really a thing anymore, which kind of sucks. But it's like vinyl's starting to come back a little bit, which is interesting with like the next generation.
A lot of the bands I talked to are kind of in that vinyl cassette space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we just did a Cigarettes for Breakfast. Our guys from Philly. We're kind of like I said, we're kind of, it's more distro and sync and all these things. So we're kind of genreless now. Like I'm very character based with like who we bring on, but we can talk about that in a moment. But our guys Cigarettes for Breakfast, they're up in Philly and we distroed their latest album. We did a waterfall release where it's just like, one release and then the second song comes out, but it's packed with the first song that came out and then packed with the last 2 songs that came out. So you can kind of, bring on, like, just kind of milk each song for what it's worth, So the whole thing is like, you don't really want people kind of going to just one song anymore. You want them going to like a playlist.
But you want them to get them back into the album. Maybe it's not an album, but you want people to actually, I was talking to some artists about this. It's like, the problem with the playlist type of mindset is you never get to really know an artist. And if everybody's a one-hit wonder, like how are you going to get people to actually want to see your whole set or actually get pulled into your work? So you kind of got to get people to dive into your tracks. And so
Mm-hmm.
if you're that marketing technique you're talking about, it gets people more familiar with that set list. So if they hear it at a concert, they'll actually know it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's well, the thing too also is one I've seen, there's companies like Venture Music, they're down the road, they're a marketing agency. There's Producer Labs and a bunch of other, really reputable agencies that can push stuff, and they always push towards playlists. So even if it's an artist playlist where it's like their last four albums, but in a playlist, in a
Mhm.
row, and then
Yeah, yeah,
sometimes they'll push towards another playlist where it's your song and then like five songs of people that sound similar to you or within your wheelhouse, and then another one of your songs. And the reason
yeah.
you would do that is so Spotify understands, like, okay, people who listen to this also listen to this, so I'm going to chuck you to more recommendations of people who are listening to these types of things. you know
Yeah, but at least if you can pack more than just one song
mm-hmm.
from an artist, so you can get people to actually, understand what is the kind of signature sound of that artist. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the single is not exactly everything about that artist,
Yeah,
so
exactly. That's why I like albums. I'm sure you love albums too. Like
yeah,
I
I'm
do
a
like to
child
hear
of
the
the '70s. The album to me is like reading a novel. It's like the great American novel. When
yeah.
I get pulled into a great album, then I can feel who that band is, and
Mm-hmm.
that will get me like on the road to like why do I want to buy their merch? Because I got into their deeper tracks and I know who they are. you
Yeah.
know?
See, like nowadays it's branding and experience, and can I relate to you? Like that's really what it is. As a person, it's not even like, because nowadays the music is the theme song to your superhero. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Just because
Yeah.
there's so much music, like there's so much noise. It's just like, how are you going to
Well,
bring?
so yeah, there's also so many things like video games. Like when you got kids who are willing to pay $90 for the next Nintendo game,
Mm,
how much are they actually willing to pay for music?
mm-hmm.
And I was having a talk with a creative person like in the last couple of days. It's like the video game industry has been able to creep up the cost and people still buy it. Like
Yeah.
you go from 50 to 70 now to 90.
Mm-hmm.
Where in the music industry, like we have not been able to get to folks to actually want, unless it's like a really big band like a Taylor Swift or something, like you get some really mega hit, then you'll pay all kinds of money. Right.
Yeah.
But if you're like just breaking a new band, like maybe you'll get kids to buy the t-shirt at the show,
Mm-hmm.
but are they actually gonna buy like a physical piece of product or just get the digital?
Yeah. I mean, especially nowadays, like you have to develop that brand and that recognition, and yeah, like you said, it's not going to be like somebody starting off. Like you got to earn it. It takes a while. You know what I'm saying? Like you're not going to
Yeah.
have somebody just buy your shirt because like they have to like you.
Yeah, they
The
gotta
reason
like
I
you.
would buy a shirt from a band is because I chatted with them after the show, and they were like,
Yeah.
"Yo, dude, thanks for coming. Holy shit, I can't believe you came here. Oh my god, take my money." Like that's so cool. I love that you like care about us. So
Yeah,
like
but it's like I
even.
think like you also get connected. Like if you see like I saw a band like Husker Du back in the day, like a
Mhm.
like an early punk band, kind of inspired. Like a lot of people were inspired by that from the grunge movement.
Yeah.
And when I saw them playing Zen Arcade back in the day, I mean, I want to buy the shirt just because I like what Zen Arcade sounds like. I mean, I was getting drawn into the whole mystique of their band, and they did that record like 2 days in a
Yeah.
warehouse.
But you
And
said
in fact, they
mystique
did
right
it
there.
live. Huh?
You said mystique, so like there was some mystery behind it, right?
Well, there's a mystery because these guys that is like they kept on just launching all kinds of product. They were creating albums like back after one after the other.
Mm-hmm.
And the day when they were kind of hitting, when they were first hitting back in the day, and
Mm-hmm.
people kind of like, well, what's Husker Du? What's this whole thing? Like they were kind of a little mysterious. You'd see video clips on 120 minutes who they were, but it was kind of like they were just like this kind of resurgence of punk before
Yeah.
grunge, and it was
Interesting.
like, wow, what is this? Because
When
like
was
that is
that?
not. Yeah, well, it wasn't like the heavy metal bands. It wasn't like the new wave bands. It wasn't
Yeah.
like hip hop. It was just this resurgence of a energy you would have got from, MC5 or something you would have got from the Sex Pistols or something like that.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Interesting. But yeah, that's even what the majors are doing, anyways. With they're coming out with. You ever hear of I think it's called Weverse.
Hmm.
So like how K-pop, Korean music.
Yeah, yeah, I know. But I'm into K drama. I watch a lot of K drama and the K-pop into K drama.
Nice. We got a couple Korean artists, Owler and Kennedy, and we have an A&R over in the territory right now, and a couple partnerships, which is pretty cool. But
You got any
they have
J-pop or you just all K-pop?
I haven't got to Japan just yet. We do have somebody in Japan right now who's shooting some videos and stuff like that. His name's Braxton. He's pretty cool. I do want to tap into them. I grew up watching anime and stuff, so I'm like
Yeah, anime. Yeah,
all into
yeah.
that stuff.
Big
But yeah,
fan.
they have a company called Weverse, I believe, by Hybe, which is the guys who created BTS.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Boy
yeah,
band.
yeah. I
And
know.
Warner just announced that they're going to be doing something similar, which Weverse is like a fan um, platform for a particular artist that people pay more, like super fans would pay more to like get exclusive stuff from this.
Oh, it's like a fan club, but it's like an online fan club.
Yeah, but like way more hardcore. Like they're really good at utilizing their fan. Like they get psycho fans over there. It's wild. Like they're like they lose their shit, and they still buy physical and stuff like T-shirts and or like what do you call it, CDs and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
It's kind of different culturally over there. But even I was learning even about radio. Like even I guess Sony doesn't really have in America like a they do probably somewhere, but they're not really pushing the radio side of things. But it's still big in the UK. They still
Yeah,
have Sony
yeah, BBC radio and radio and on the off the kind of pirate radio kind of thing going on too, if it's
very
still
cool.
going on. But that was like the big thing was the pirate radio there. But
I do remember. I don't remember that, but I remember seeing. I think they made a movie of it. I think that's what I'm thinking of.
yeah, but it was kind of like the thing that would break a lot of the indie bands was coming off outside the BBC. It was coming off the pirate radio guys doing stuff. But yeah, it's just the feel of independent music because I've heard some numbers where the new generation is going back and listening to like different decades, maybe not this decade, right? They're going back and listening to stuff and finding like, oh, I like this genre. Like I want to go back to new wave, or I want to go back to 90s pop or 2010 pop, where people are finding like these niches and wanting to go back where rather than be where we are.
Yeah, I would probably say that I think we really started noticing that with Kate Bush with the Netflix show Stranger Things, where going back like what is that chamber pop like back in the 80s or something. I think that really kind of started a new rabbit hole for a lot of young ones who are kind of there's so much out there now. It's almost like, okay, I'm done with this. I don't like everything looks the same. Everything sounds the same.
Find something that's more distinctive. And if you go back, you can find the distinctive, like especially in the new wave era. New wave is not just Duran Duran. There's a lot in new wave, and it wasn't just all synth. There was a lot going on with guitar and world beats and African beats and reggae beats mixed with like punk aesthetic and progressive rock. So there's a lot in that genre, and a lot of people today like synth pop bands. So I'll go back to the new wave and kind of figure out what was really going on.
Yeah, and it's proven. That's the thing too, where it's been vetted for us. Like this song was already big in the 80s or 90s or 70s or 60s, so it must be good.
Like Tears for Fears. You're going back to Tears for Fears, and people getting pulled into that. And it's just like the as a songwriter, like the art of the old songcraft of having bridges, having intros, having outros, actually having a song structure. It's not just a hook.
Yeah, everything is a hook nowadays.
Yeah, but that tends like if everything's a hook, it's like where's the build up? You go back and you listen to something like Abbey Road. Go listen to anything the Beatles did. Anything the Stones did, and you want to kind of learn how to write. Listen to stuff on Exile on Main Street if you're a rock band.
Yeah,
if you're a synth band, you maybe listen to like Duran Duran or Flock of Seagulls or Joy Division, New Order. Any of those bands, and you start seeing like there's something to the art of song craft rather than just like hook craft.
Yeah, well, I mean, now it's unfortunately music's kind of become quite disposable. It's just so easy to make. Like with the younger generation. I mean, you just snag a beat off of YouTube and then chuck some auto tune on your voice and you're a rap star. So it's like it's less intentional now. That's why I kind of like our Korean friends. Where like the distribution companies over there actually vet you. Like you can't just release stuff like we can here. You
Yeah.
know,
I think it's kind of that's why you get this rebellion of some people going back, listening to 60s and 70s music, go listen to a Carpenter song and look at like Richard Carpenter and the structure of those songs.
mm,
And then you'll get like a band like television, not television, but Tennis that kind of channels like a Carpenter vibe.
mm-hmm,
And there are niches where people are starting to say, yeah, I kind of want that Karen Carpenter vibe again in pop music. Like I
mm-hmm.
want Richard Carpenter actually composing on the piano and actually taking something and making a song that means something.
Yeah. It must be wild being, from that era and getting hit up again nowadays because like the next generation is into their stuff. So they want to just kind of like Harry Styles or something, just kind of like taking an old like 70s vibe and like making it modern, and just getting like musicians and stuff from that era and shit like that. It's wild. It's really cool, like the blending of the generations
Well, I think that's where you can make some progress because, like, if you take a 70s structure of a song and you take some of the modern production techniques
mm-hmm,
with some of the vocal stuff that we can do today, the sampling you can do today,
mm-hmm.
like the unlimited possibility of your studio, you don't have to be George Martin,
Yeah.
right? You don't have to be in Abbey Road. You don't have to be in Olympia. You can actually do it without being there, right? So the possibility is that you actually could create White Album, Abbey Road, Pink Floyd level stuff. You could. And I think there are some kids that are starting to realize, like, I kind of want that because they're going back there.
Yeah. Because it's proven. And it's musically, like, just even, they knew music theory back then.
Yeah.
Like, it's
I
not
think
like four chords.
Every generation we get like a Prince, we get somebody that comes along and brings people back into the song. You think about Kurt Cobain, got people back into like, oh, you can be a songwriter. You can be this tortured songwriter. I still believe in the human kind of creativity that there will be like somebody like that pops up, and they won't be denied because things are so similar that person will stand out.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
So what you do with your business and the type of artists you like to bring in, you seem like you're looking for a lot of different types. Because you talk about K-pop, you talk maybe J-pop, hip hop is kind of your warehouse. Is there certain set of type of genres that you prefer to work with?
I don't have any really set bits of genre. It's so I barely listen to music that often, to be truthful with you. I'm more into audiobooks and podcasts and stuff. So my A&Rs, I'm trusting them to find me like cool, because I'm not going to pretend I know what like
what's
an
working.
old is into now. So like I'm 35 to give you some context, but I'm trusting the next generation to find what's good, and then I'll talk with the artist, and then I even have the A&R or an intern chatting with them. With the artist, so they can kind of see how I talk to them, because I'm very big on purpose and like, why are you doing this? Like, it can't be to make a living with music, because that's not inspiring. So it's like, you have to, like, what's your mission? What's your flag you're flying? Like, why should people stand with you? So I don't expect a young 20-year-old or 19-year-old, 18-year-old to know what that answer is. I don't, like, a lot of people don't know never find what their purpose is. And by purpose, I mean like what you're trying to give back to the world.
Yeah.
Most people confuse it with passion. I don't know if you know Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Poor Dad author, but he mentioned that passion is selfish, purpose is giving. So I'm very much. I always ask potential interns or A&Rs or artists that, and I always am just fascinated by their responses, because most of them are like, "Whoa, purpose, dude!" Like they're just like taken aback, like they've never been asked that before. Some try to give me an answer, but it's like I. And I point that out to them. I'm like, notice how many times you said I there? So like, what are you giving back? Like, that's what I try to find. And of course there's artists that, do very well. And of course we'll work with them, but like, there's some that are like, that I would, what would you call it? Just that I keep an eye on a little bit more closely, because like, there's, we have a team, we have like other people here. But like for example, Dark Nova, he's doing quite well. He's with SoundCloud. He's got between like 12 and 20,000 monthly listeners, which is, a comfy number to get the ball like started on Spotify and stuff. But like his music is just like, damn, kid, like 20 years old, like you got this retro vibe going on. The pop like sound and structure is there. You got solid producer friends. Like, holy shit, dude, like you're going somewhere, you know. So I've we don't really manage a lot of artists. I'm very particular on that. It's very character based. It's like even how long we've known each other type thing. Because like it's not just like bringing on a client. Like, yeah, I'll get you some networks or whatever the fuck. Like, we want to grow together. I want to know our
You
goals.
actually want to build a relationship with your artist and actually have a connection, and not just
and develop them as a person, because your success is determined by your self development. It's not just your skill. You know, you have to be well versed in a lot of things. So
it kind of goes back to like I was going to bring up the whole thing of your Upstate Sound Academy, and if I go back a little bit, so it's like Motown had this idea that they would train their artists in terms of etiquette, dance, structure, presentation. Is it kind of in that vein what you're doing?
Not necessarily in that particular case, but that's a cool idea, and I'm going to actually write that down and probably add that in some case when we get to that point where we're able to do that. But I'm talking more like entrepreneurial, more like just as like if it's a young adult, you know, how to be a man, you know, like how do you need to think? How do you need to be understand the world around you? Like, know the city that you're in, know the people you're in. Like, are you a leader worth following? How do you become a leader? You know, because everyone's always like, oh, if I only had a team, if I had a label, if I had a manager. Like, dude, you're the CEO of Artist LLC. It's your responsibility. This is your business. You know what I'm saying? So, okay, you know, like, now build that business. How do I do that? How do I start thinking that way? It's no different than a baker. The baker's got to do the content too. They got to make the cakes. They got to do the finances. They got to pay the employees. They got to do all this shit. Why the fuck would you be different? You know?
Yeah.
So like, that's what I try to like teach them and instill in them. And then even when we get to a point where there's catalog acquisitions, like for Duetti, for example, you know, we sold a song to them for quite a substantial bit. You know, everyone has been very, you know, over, what do you call it? Ownership, you know, masters and publishing and all that stuff. That was like very big talking point over the last 10, you know, 20 years. And then you see Bieber sell his catalog, Lil Wayne sell his catalog, Bruce Springsteen sell his catalog. Now, the reason for that is because the shit's peaked, you know, and not only, it's not that the songs will be irrelevant in the future, our population's going down. There's less people to listen to it. So regardless of how popular it is, there's less ears to listen to it. They're going to be making less money in the future anyways. And your masters in publishing are only worth what you are relevant to the culture. So in 20 years, your shit might not be hot anymore. So why don't you sell that for like $100,000 and invest in a 300-unit apartment complex downtown Nashville? Because that's going to, you know, increase in value over time. So that's what I'm talking about, like that entrepreneurial kind of mindset. Like even right now, a lot of the boomers are retiring. There's a lot of boring businesses that cash flow like a mofo, and they don't have heirs to take over. You know, so instead of going to get a bank loan or whatever, maybe buy that laundromat down there, you know, and then that starts cash flowing. Then all of a sudden, you know, maybe it makes 1.4 million a year and you got 40,000 profit. And then that can go into your music career. Boom. You know, so like that's how I want them to start thinking. Like, you have to start thinking like a businessman, start thinking like an entrepreneur, start thinking like these aren't your babies, like the music and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, yes, they're your leverage right now when you're 20, you know, and then when you build it up, get some leverage, especially nowadays, everyone's doing licensing deals and all that stuff, but they last like 20 years on some of them, especially if you're getting a fat advance. You know what I'm saying? So once you, and that's fine potentially, you know what I'm saying? Use that, don't live off of it, invest it into something that is going to get you a nice return. Put it in the S&P 500, put it into real estate, possibly crypto and gold and all these other things that have been proven over the last hundreds of plus thousands of years with gold and all that shit. You know what I'm saying? So that I started kind of tangenting there and ranting.
No, it makes sense. I mean, it tends to be a lot, you know, like if you're like a pure artist, you tend to probably not think in those terms. Like you think like if you're somebody who was like a fusion jazz artist, the last thing, or like a funk artist like a George Clinton back in the day, but probably the last thing they're thinking about is what you're talking about. And they kind of burned George because he ended up signing like Westwood and being fighting that, and he's fighting it to this day. But the idea, you know, as like some musicians are so into the craft that they don't look at the business side.
Yeah.
And that's a mistake. You know, Prince used to fight that battle, you know, when he was alive. He was always, at least he had a vision of what he wanted to do, right?
And that's important for artists to have, is that vision. I
Yeah,
just had an artist the other day call me asking like, "Yo, should I drop my managers?" And I'm just like, "Oh shit, I probably shouldn't be talking about that, but we're gonna talk about it. It's fine." And I'm like, "Well, why are you asking me that, bro? They're like, you should be asking them, like, them about me or whatever." So
yeah,
he's a good dude, and he appreciates the advice and all that stuff. But I'm very just grateful that I've made an impact and inspired artists to even be able to ask me those questions and want to hop on and be a part of the team that we're building, because like we want to guide the next generation forward. We want to show them like there is a way. It's very different than what it was back then. a
yeah.
lot
We're
of
trying to
artists
live.
got, a lot of artists back then got fucked over.
Yeah,
So
but
like,
it still seems like a lot of times, like if you look at the way the structure of the industry is, especially today, like if you look at a lot of these tools that people are using to, master music or work on music, and then it's basically saying, well, we're going to train your our AI on your song,
yeah.
and you can't get any royalties from it. And then people are going like, well, I don't know if I want to do that.
hmm that
Because
that's a whole other
yeah,
thing we're gonna have to figure out.
yeah, because it kind of goes like there's one thing back in the day when you had sampling, right? And then you got to clear the sample, and eventually the people who own those masters got paid.
hmm
But with this AI stuff, because I'm in the tech, right? I do tech as a living, and
Cool.
the problem with the way this machine library learning and the things that people in the industry and the AI industry wants to do, they want to train on all art, film, music,
hmm
graphic art, all art, and then eventually get to a place where the machines have all that art, and then they create brand new art, and the people who gave that foundation don't get any percentage at all.
Yeah.
And then that to me is a dangerous place for artists, where you, at least in the sampling, you would get some kind of royalty, but in this kind of mindset, then you might not get any money at all.
Yeah, I feel like we're in a there. I mean, Tennessee just passed the Elvis Act, I believe, where you can't like replicate, certain voices and facial, like deep fake type stuff. I'm pretty sure that just happened, and I find it interesting with the AI stuff because at some point we could possibly track what they actually pulled to create this AI music or AI sample or
Well, you
something.
can definitely track it because it's all
Yeah,
digitized.
but that's what I'm saying. Like, if I'm sure they're pulling from maybe, could be tens of hundreds of thousands of different little things to kind of do this. But if you're able to identify it, then maybe you could still pay a royalty.
Well, it's the same thing if you think about like a De La Soul album that
Yeah.
couldn't get released for a long time until they tracked down all the releases, and then they
Mhm.
finally took care of it legally.
Yeah.
And the digital rights management software today can track anything it hears that actually has been copyrighted or registered for
hmm
BMI or any of the ASCAP or any of that. It can find it. Well, that tech, the AI tech is even better than that. So it could totally tell you what it did. It can track. I mean, I deal with tech all the time. They're logs. It logs everything it does. It knows exactly what it did. So they can't try to hide that it doesn't, because it could. It's just a matter of, does the society say that artists should be compensated for the art they do? That
Yeah.
is kind of a higher level thing. It's like if you're in the business and you love art and art is your wheelhouse. Yeah, I know there's other things that'll make you money, but if art is your wheelhouse, you should be paid for the work that you do that's being used by other people.
hmm Yeah. I actually just saw a picture of YouTube now offering, add music to your video, like an AI content music creator thing. So it'll be royalty free and all that. I'm like, that's interesting. I wonder if you're pulling from all those type beats on YouTube.
It's
So
pulling for anything that it said in the kind of print that you didn't, when you get these agreements that it says to
yeah.
use the YouTube platform, to use the Google platform, you have to opt in.
hmm
When you look into those opt-ins, a lot of times it's saying deep in it that it's learning on your content.
Yeah.
And so most of the time it's like, in the EU, they're actually trying to make rules where they can't do that.
Good.
But in the US, they haven't done that yet. And so if you signed in on Google or you're on Amazon, if you're on any of these major platforms,
Hmm.
most of the time to be able to have your email address, to have your account,
Yeah.
you kind of opted in for it to train on your stuff.
Yeah, hopefully we're Congress gets to a point where they pass something that's like, yeah, you guys can't do that anymore. But AI is here to stay. It's not going away. It's just like
Well, it's kind of
how
got to back into it's kind of thing about the
yeah,
sampler. The samplers were created and people just grab stuff. And then in the beginning, they didn't have to pay but then the law caught up with the tech.
yeah,
I believe the law will catch up with the tech.
yeah,
But the problem is like we're in the Wild West right now where the AI is way ahead of the law.
yeah,
So it is actually just grabbing everything.
yeah. And it's kind of weird too, because like I would argue that also most people aren't even really aware of AI stuff. I would say the people in the know are, but I would like a lot of people are. I'm still talking with people who are like, "What's ChatGPT?" And it's just like, damn, how do you not know what ChatGPT is, bro? You got to like get on it, or you're gonna get left behind, dude.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's like it's a tool like anything. I mean, I use tools for this podcast. I use some AI tools.
Mm-hmm.
In my business as an analyst, I use it.
Yeah.
But the one thing is you trust and verify. But because the problem with the AI is it will always give you an answer.
Yes.
Whether or not the answer is right is up to you, like to validate, because it will give you an answer way better than a Google search ever gave you.
Yeah.
And it's still like your responsibility. And like, I was talking to a lawyer that said like some lawyers got burned because they didn't do their due diligence and took what a chat GPT told them to do.
I think I heard that. Yeah, was that in the news or something? I think I heard
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. And so it's like it will give you a very convincing answer, but
Yeah.
you still have to do the work. So you're a human being. You still have to do some work.
Yeah, I know that was a legal thing we were dealing with too. Like, does an email confirmation or just some type of maybe not an agreement or a confirmation or whatever, but an email trail, does that hold up in court? I was asking ChatGPT, and it technically can, I guess, but like even though my artist was like, "Yo," like no, it doesn't, all this other stuff, and I'm like, bro, unless we get a lawyer or whatever to like let us know exactly what it is, we can only kind of go off of this.
Yeah, you go off what you got. But
Yeah,
it's like it's not exactly it's not 100% because there's this idea of what it calls a hallucination.
yeah.
It's an AI term. It will actually give you an answer. It looks very convincing.
It's
But when
also bias on you too. Like if you ask it, like, well, what happens if this happened, or like, what do you mean with this? Like, doesn't it mean this? And it's like, oh, you're absolutely right. And then it'll like make
it'll
it
go
work
back
for
and
you.
revise itself. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got to understand it's trying to please you.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of designed to do that,
Yeah.
And that's not always the best. If you're going to college, like your professors will catch you, your papers,
Mm-hmm.
because they know they're sniffing it out, and it's like no, no, no. Like if I ask you about this paper, you don't know anything that's in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you didn't write it.
Yeah, it's pretty wild how back then they used to yell at us for using calculators and stuff. And you're not going to have a calculator in your pocket when you're living life. It's just like, damn. I mean, we got a whole thing telling us.
Well, yeah, like
about the world.
like a mainframe computer in your hand.
Yeah.
That's what you got today. And as a musician, there's a lot of cool things you can do.
Yeah.
Like you can use it to like. I won't use it to write the whole song.
Yeah.
I might use it to like give me an idea, give me a color to something. Like maybe you can show me like how this would sound if I use this type of filter, right? So I use this low pass filter, this high pass filter. I use something like maybe you can give me like an example of a Neve filter I can't afford.
Yeah.
Right. So you could pull that through a software version of that and give me that. So I know it's like, oh, like I didn't have to actually have that Neve board. I can actually get it to give me the different colors and then give me like 10-second snippets of what it would sound like using this, using that. To me, that's a cool use of a tech, right? But I wouldn't want to use it to write the song. But that's just me. I would rather use it to color the song.
Yes.
To edit the song. But it's just a style choice. Are you going to get lazy or are you actually going to, do the work?
I mean, a lot of people use, I heard, Kanye used just the iPhone mic to do a lot of the Donda stuff. I don't know if you remember the Gorillas with Damon Albarn. What's his last name? They did a whole project on the iPad when it came out, I think.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I remember he did that. Well, yeah, you can use the tech to kind of, like a synthesizer in the beginning. All the purists were like, that's not a real instrument.
Mm-hmm.
With that, once the Moog Mini Moog came out and people found out you could do basses on it,
Mm-hmm.
and Keith Emerson showed what you could do, and guys from Genesis, yes, they started showing like a synthesizer can be a real instrument if a classically trained pianist can actually use it, and it doesn't not sound like somebody who knows how to play a piano or
Yeah.
harpsichord or an organ. It's the same. It is an instrument. So I think these tools can be useful in creative processes. Just I think we can't just do 100% use of the tool. Then it's
Yeah.
really not you.
Mhm.
It's whatever.
Dude, you're quite knowledgeable, man. You are a student of the art. Like, I appreciate it. Like, you know way more than I do about that stuff.
Well, I just think it's important for people to kind of be aware, like you said, like people don't know what ChatGPT is. We're living in what is the information age, right?
Yeah.
This is the information automation age. Like tack
Yeah.
on, this is like the age of where you're going to get robots that are really close to stuff you saw in Star Wars. Like you're
Mm-hmm.
going to start to see drones and robots and stuff that look like stuff in Star Trek and Star Wars for real.
I know,
And
man. I'm not ready for it. I don't want this thing walking in here, bringing like doing laundry and shit. I'm like, oh,
it's already they're in the pipeline already.
yeah.
But it's like this is the age of that, and so you have to understand is like that like you're gonna have to level up because there's stuff that's being replaced. I mean, I know programmers are getting replaced.
Yep.
AI is so good it can actually program in some cases, and some low level programmers are being replaced by it. So you have to level up and understand how to tame it and actually get into it. So
Yeah.
like you have to level up. The guy was putting shoehorns on the horse, and then the car shows up. You got to learn how to work on an engine, or you're not going to be working on anything.
Yeah. I mean, like you said about before about, like that next generation of creatives and stuff like that. And, trusting in human innovation, innovation. And I think that we need to trust in human innovation as, we enter the world of AI and as we're in this information age, because like yeah, some jobs will be lost, but like there's new jobs that we haven't even thought of that will be created, and that's
Yeah.
happened over time ever since, the Industrial Revolution and all that stuff,
Well,
so
this revolution allows like one or two people to create like a mini factory in a place that wasn't a factory. A 3D printer and your computer. You could actually build a manufacturing capability in your house.
yeah.
Right. So now you can be a small micro manufacturer. You could be a small service provider. You could do what a company with 100 people did, you could do with 2 or 3 people.
Yeah.
So that means you can make all these micro businesses that never existed. That means you could have the power of Olympic Studios or Abbey Road in your room,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you can do something that if you shared that and like your models, like you bring people into your spaces, the tools today and the equipment today, you could get really high level quality for not the money that it used to cost to buy like some $100,000 knee board.
Yeah.
So I just think it's an equalization and opportunity. And if you just look at it as like, oh, this is the end of the world, but that's the maybe the wrong way to look at it.
Yeah.
But what's next for your company? Like, are you just continuing to expand in Nashville, or are you thinking that that's your home base? That's where you're going to be.
This is um a relatively, I guess, small percent of what like I need to accomplish with the time I have on this planet. But yeah, for the Upstate Sound in particular, like Nashville will always probably be HQ. We do have people in Los Angeles, London, Korea, looking to get some people down in Miami for like, the Latin music and Spanish. But eventually getting it to a global enterprise that is, able to rival quite a lot of the other, bigger companies out there, but like in the way I want to do it,
Hmm.
what our values are and what we represent. Because I always see like, I'm sure you watch podcasts and other webinars and stuff with CEOs and other, business people, and they're just kind of boring. There's nothing like lively about them, like, damn,
Yeah.
inspire me, motherfucker. Like, let me know like things are going to be cool.
Well, they're all
So
kind of coming from like they're coming from the balance sheet point of view
yeah, yeah.
because like an accountant, the actuarial thing, it's hard to get excited about widgets
Hmm.
and spreadsheets.
Yeah.
if you can be more passionate, like Steve Jobs was able to be very passionate CEO
Mm-hmm.
and get people to see the idea of Apple.
Because he's a visionary. There's
Yeah,
there's a
that was a
difference.
visionary. When you get a visionary, you get somebody like that. When you get
Yeah,
somebody that's like totally can go beyond the narrowness of their lane, right? And actually communicate it outward, then that's like revolutionary when you can get somebody who can connect at that level. And that's why I think in this age, people, this is what we live in, this kind of internet age of the TikTok, Instagram, short, real mindset. Like if you can connect in that 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 60 seconds
mm-hmm.
and make that pitch and get people to get it and then make people stay in longer
Yeah,
for your webinar and not fall asleep and actually get motivated and actually want to talk to you, want to connect with you. That's how you make progress.
yeah. I mean, it's brand building too. It's your personal brand. It's the company brand. It's just like, again, it's what do you want to represent? What is like, why should people stand with you? So like that's what you have to kind of, for artists, for companies, for anybody. It's just like, what do you want to give back? Once you can kind of identify that, you'll figure it out. Because mostly, every question is just like, oh, how do you do that? Motherfucker, you got ChatGPT right here. It gives you the answers now. Just ask,
Yeah.
like before you had to just Google it, before you had to read about it and have a mentor. Like now you can just ask ChatGPT to like get you a blueprint of like how to get you from point A to B, But a lot of people just like, they want things done for them.
Yeah.
Nobody's willing to or understands like how fucking difficult it actually is to start a business and keep it going, and taxes and payroll and expenses and all this other fucking shit, like all that. It's and that's what I try to teach. Like whenever I have I'm chatting with somebody new or an intern or even if I'm talking to like you, just talking about these things and getting it out there and getting it heard, and just like, oh, maybe I should listen to a business podcast or something to learn about like what the interest rates are.
I think the forward progress is like the whatever level of discomfort you will have with like going outside your wheelhouse
mm-hmm.
to gain knowledge, and you know that you're gonna drown or fall on your face. But the fact is, like, you have to know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And then you have to kind of seek out those things that may be at first a little uncomfortable to be outside your warehouse. But if you just feel like you're phoning it in and you got, a hold of what you're doing, it's like, well, that's going to get kind of tired, and you're probably not going to be very responsive to what's going on in the world if you just stay in that loop.
Yeah. We're limited by what we know. Even if you're collaborating or making music, like you need to work with other people because you're going to learn some certain things from them. And that's how you can really start to shape your style. It's kind of like I compare like even your musical style, like to a, like fashion, like a lookbook or something. You're kind of cruising through. It's just like, oh, I like that scarf, cruising through. I like that jacket. And, you start, taking these influences and putting them on you, and that's your style, So it's, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, that's the idea. Like you think about a guy like I always bring it back to Miles Davis.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He's a bebop king.
Yeah,
he's in that canon. A lot of people think that is jazz, his bebop phase. And then he was bold enough to break his own canon and create fusion.
Cool.
Right? So the idea that somebody in a canon would actually go and create a whole nother canon, a whole nother area, that is really when you're an innovator. Like you think of like a Bowie. He could have been Ziggy Stardust forever, and he switched to Aladdin Sane, then White Duke, made all these different characters, and he would do it, and sometimes it would not be commercially successful.
Yeah.
But he said, I can't be an artist and be comfortable. I have to put myself into a certain state of discomfort where I might be kind of treading water, but I'm not going to drown. He had a statement that was in those kind of words. And I always thought that's really, you can apply that to everything. You that kind of mindset is, you do have to get comfortable with a little discomfort.
Yeah.
In order to make progress. And I think people don't like that because they're scared of it.
Well, it's because they don't trust themselves. They're afraid to fail. They're afraid to, people are going to judge them, even though they don't really care what other people think, but
yeah,
it's very, I'm sure you follow like Gary Vee and like all those kind of entrepreneurial guys and stuff where they're just like, dude, fuck what everyone else thinks. Bro, you're 22. Calm down. You don't need to be a millionaire right now. It takes 10 years to be a professional at something. Like, I don't understand what the rush is. Like, you're not going to be like Juice WRLD. You're not going to be like, the Justin Bieber and stuff. There's like 2 in the last 20 years. It's very rare out of the population of the world. So like be patient and grow and learn all these things and try new things. And like your 20s are supposed to be like failing,
When you craft it, like you think about like Bob Dylan's like the greatest songwriter in the world. He was booed and derided when he made his like went electric, right? But in '66 when he went electric, like they booed him and he went to London, they booed him. By the 1970s, he's filling like massive stadiums with the band playing the same music.
Yeah, they booed Elvis off stage at the Ryman just down the road.
He was like ahead of the curve. He had a style in '66 that people didn't fully understand, but he kept his craft going, and that style became like a bedrock of the '70s.
Yeah,
like with the Dead and the band and him. It's like that same sound was from '66.
Have you seen the movie?
Huh?
Have you seen the movie?
Oh yeah.
Was it awesome? I haven't seen it yet.
It's awesome, but it doesn't really go to the '70s phase. It's more in the '60s. But I like all his phases, but I'm a big fan of what was going on in the '70s.
Yeah,
and just like the kind of like a validation of being a little ahead of the curve. Like Lou Reed was ahead of the curve. Same thing happened with him in the '60s with the Velvets. He wasn't really kicking it, but then suddenly he worked with Bowie, and then he had Walk on the Wild Side, which helped Bowie help produce. Then he broke through, and it's the same concepts that were in '66. But by the '70s, with Bowie having his glam, kind of fame validated, and Bowie was a big fan of Lou. He was like, he thought he was his idol, and he was like, wait, Lou hadn't been making any money. And so later in the career, he like somebody who's a fan helped him get to a level of success he had never had. So that's interesting that kind of dynamic can have, that one of your fans of your old period can actually get you to where you need to be.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing nowadays. Like even artists are just asking their fans, what direction should I just go in? Like ask the market, stop thinking too hard.
If you let your fans, if you have that communication with your fans, and you actually, now you can get it. Like you could get like immediate, like writers have beta readers.
Yeah.
And they send their books to this group of trusted beta readers before anybody gets it. And they get a lot of feedback of like which way, if they're going the right way or not. Yeah. And musicians, we could do the same things,
Yeah, there's a thing on SoundCloud now. It's some beta thing that they're doing called fans or whatever. You can actually message every single listener that listened to your song on SoundCloud now. Just DM them or whatever. And
get feedback. Yeah. And
get
guys who actually give you good critique.
Yeah.
If this hearing you hated it doesn't really help me.
Yeah. I mean, it's even just collaborating with them. Like what, like you said, like what direction do you like, or like what drew you to this? How'd you come across it? If Spotify had allowed that, I mean, that'd be a game changer. Like I would have my artists, like, I don't care if you had 1 million monthly listeners, bro, you're going to talk with every single one of those people, because
it's a good thing to get into, because like if you get that feedback loop, then you're not so, I think sometimes as artists, we get too close to something.
Yeah.
And we kind of need to get that 50,000 foot view of like, where are you fitting in?
Right? Especially if you do everything. Especially if you make the beat, if you mix it, if you write the song, if you record yourself, like all that, like you can really overthink a lot of things. So that's what I've noticed anyways. I know for myself. But if you say you make the beat or something and you could send it off to an artist and they can top line over it and do stuff, or maybe you're just writing over someone else's beat because that's inspiring and stuff like that. I think it just comes down to collaboration. I think music is collaborative in nature.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to if you get in the old days, like when I'm in a basement with 4 guys with a 4-piece kind of band, like a punk band or something.
Yeah.
And it's just like in that basement rehearsal session, it's that kind of learning from each other, like learning from the drummer, learning from the bass player. It's like what worked, what doesn't work. Yeah. And now a lot of times we're so somebody's in a different city, somebody's in a different country. They send you this, they send you a file, you get that. You don't have that collaborative effort that you had when you're in the basement, right? Or in the garage. And so how do you get that kind of collaboration when you're using all this tech that's remote?
Yeah.
How can you
It's
get
a
the same feel to get get that immediate feedback?
Yeah, and you don't really it's not you're not discovering really anymore, you know, like everyone's discovering themselves while they're like trying to like oh no, right there, keep going, you know, like with that
Yeah,
shit,
yeah,
like you don't
yeah.
get that like excitement like with
Yeah, you
people.
don't get that, there's nothing like that, I still prefer that, I work with people overseas, I've worked with somebody in Denmark or somebody in
Mhm.
Japan, different places, and they never met him,
Yeah.
and we might instead have a WebEx, and in that WebEx, we might play to each other, and that we did that, and
Mhm.
I found that was very useful.
Yeah.
Instead of just sending a file and then doing an email, actually get on a WebEx and actually doing a web conference and actually doing that kind of thing as if we were in the same room. And the
Mhm.
tech now is good enough that you could actually do that. And so there are places where people could collab where they just don't realize that they could.
Yeah.
Um, and I still think that that human kind of collaboration is always going to provide some kind of magic that maybe the other type you can get to it, but it's not the same thing.
Yeah, I mean that's what I think. Even in just business stuff, I think we're going to be, you know, as much as AI can handle like administrative kind of works and stuff like that, we're probably going to start having more in person meetings because we're going to eventually hit a point where we're just like we don't even need to leave this room, you know, like so we're going to try to find ways to come together. I even saw the other day fitness festivals are becoming like a thing. You know,
Mhm.
I don't know, like Diplo's Club Run, if you know about that, but like that's,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
there's DJs there, there's like all these things going on, but it's like we're like begging for reasons to come together because we're community animals. You know, we want to
Yeah, well,
be.
that's what we're kind of built on that, that to me is the salvation of that kind of getting back together and then live bands actually playing and, people integrating, DJs with live instruments,
Yeah,
playing with them and,
Lincoln Park.
models and actors and painters. And there used to be these things called happenings, and
Happening.
happenings would have multiple types of art, like in San Francisco, in New York. Like one of the famous ones was like, they had you had the Lou Reed, and he was working with Andy Warhol,
Mm-hmm.
and Andy Warhol would have his art in these warehouses and models and actors and the Velvet Underground, the band, all playing in a club and having all these things happening at once.
Mm,
And that drove the poets and the painters and the actors and the artists and the musicians are all in the same room getting all these ideas in this kind of virtual, like not a virtual, but like an actual event that's multi-threaded, bunch of things happening all at once.
very cool.
I think that that kind of thing would, people would be really into that today, that type of idea.
I think so too. I mean, I feel like I've seen that in movies, you know, like even what did I watch recently? That HBO Successor or something like that. I think there was an episode where they were like in some type of uh, exactly what you said. I never heard it called like a happening. You know,
Yeah.
like where there's like art gallery, there's a band over here, there's something else going on over here. Like there's all these, stimulus,
Yeah. But
in one.
it's just a way to kind of feed people's artistic and intentions and get people to kind of get triggered into, yeah, there's a permission structure, you know.
Mm, very
That I
cool.
think it's a cool idea, but to toss it out there. But yeah, we always end up talking longer than we ever expected. We actually hit the hour mark.
That's what I'm saying. Let's play it by ear, man. I'm down for it. Let's go.
Cool. But yeah, so I do have another appointment, but I want to point out that we have upstatesound.com. So if people go there, what do they find if they hit your URL?
The upstatesound.com, it'll show kind of our services, a bit of our roster that we have. You could check out our studio services as well, look into the distro and sync, publishing and just you can contact us, just DM us like on Instagram or something. We're extremely open to just chat with everybody. We have an open door policy at the office where it's just like I've had people come in I had the other day a guy who drove down here from Canada, from Saskatchewan, and just knocked on our door. He's sleeping in his car, like, yo, is this the Upstate Sound? I'm like, damn, dude, like, what the fuck? So I ended up chatting with him for like an hour and just kind of giving him advice because he thought he was going to come down here and get a record deal, So I'm kind of like teaching him. He's from a small town of like 200 people up in, Saskatchewan, Canada. And I've had people come down here from like Chicago and just like, yo, I'm just kind of calling around and stuff. Can I come, can I come talk to you guys or whatever? I'm like, yeah, we're in a session. Come on through, and artists love that shit too. Like they get to kind of show like an exclusive thing. Like they're the artist is like, oh damn, dude, like, yeah, come on in, man. I mean, the guy don't know if
It's cool that you give that kind of space for people to do that, because there's a lot of times people that they don't feel they have a way to get to that anymore.
Yeah, well, because it doesn't exist really anymore. You can't just like knock on someone's door and say like, yo, can I mop your floors for free? I just want to be around. Like that time's
Like
over.
roadies, like when people would be a free roadie.
Yeah, dude, it's just like, oh man, I just want to help. Let me help move some cases for you and stuff.
Yeah.
But like, what we do is like we do our internship stuff, and like with the academy, we do our A&R kind of training program. So like you can get in and actually do what A&Rs are doing now, because even that game's like quite different than what it used to be.
Yeah. Totally different.
That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, but it's very enjoyable to talk to people in the music field, because that's kind of where we started the podcast. So I want to thank you for being on the show tonight.
Yeah, of course, man. It was great chatting with you, Phantom.
Thank you. And we were just live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, and we will be on all the other platforms where you can listen to watch a podcast by tomorrow. The platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify Video Podcast, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Podcast. So thank you again for being on the show.
It's great being here, buddy. We'll talk soon. See you.
Thank you.